Oh, jeez. Where's Lily? What do you need? My biggest thing is I'm seeing is that it's dropping major frames, so that means the Wi-Fi's bad. I think she had said there might be issues.
Yeah.
He was going to give me 200. Yeah, he was.
Let me see if he has some food. Let me see if he wrote some food. How you doing? Which way did Mitchell go? Hey, Mitchell.
How you
Did
doing,
you bring
bud? How you doing? Good.
Did you bring an extra stack of those
Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
So
You do a
she said
little,
you wanted like should I give her like half?
Take down where she's from. We can get it to her this week.
I do not. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry.
So it'll probably be Thursday. Will there be somebody to
Thursday. Tomorrow there is. Oh, yes.
I'll be there. We'll make it happen. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Eric claims that they're 90s.
So we'll get a second to RSVP. Yes, ma'am. There's actually some right over there. Thank you, thank you.
All right, for those who are making their way in still, we've got plenty of seats at these tables up at the front. We've got one table for 4 to my left over here that is completely open. If anyone wants their own personal table for 4.
Can I get an extra? I smell coffee.
I thought there was. I think they're brewing it, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. When the head gets back of this the church, I'll ask her. She just went to go grab a couple things. Up by Tommy.
All right, a few quick housekeeping announcements before we get started. It's almost 6:30 now. It may even be 6:30, but just as we got some stragglers who are coming in, if anyone needs to use the restrooms are out these doors to my left and actually to the right side of the entry doors to the building that's next to us. So if you need to use the restroom at any point, they are over there. If these last doors to my left are closed, that means you can't come back in that way. You'll have to go around to the front where you you came in originally and come in through those doors. But if they happen to be propped open, you're welcome to make your way back in this way. Again, we've got a few more seats up here. We've got 2 seats at this front table. We've got 3 seats at a table over here. So if anyone's looking for a spot, feel free to go take a seat. We'll be starting in just a couple minutes.
Talking, I don't know. Mic test? Okay. You're in charge of that one. We just talked about it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. She's good. She feels very confident. Lily, because I need to get the better Wi-Fi. So
She'll be right back. She ran to the office.
when she comes back and tell her that that's the issue, and we just need to get onto better Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I got you.
And then again, we're live, but we're on starting soon. So come here, let me show you how it works. So it's really, really easy. You just click main show and it will go to the camera feed. And then if you need to go back, we can click be right back. We can click live stream has ended, so that's the end of the show. So it's really, really easy.
Yep.
And then you just click main show and it should go.
Yep. You need that microphone.
You're right.
Don't keep moving it to me. Yeah, they said if
If anyone is interested in a pen, we've had some pens make their way in. So if you'd like a pen to write anything down, please feel free to raise your hand and signal Lillian in red. She's walking around with pens, and she's happy to offer them up for anyone who's looking for something to write with. All right, everyone, it is about time for us to get started. So it's time to start wrapping up those conversations. We hope to hear your voices throughout the evening as we have some important conversations around homelessness.
You want me to hit
And
start?
Thank you all for being here today. Just wanted to introduce myself.
My name is Mitchell Snow. I'm the faith liaison for Interfaith Community Services. So part of what I do is work with different faith communities of different religions and different denominations who are looking to come together to do something good. And that's a little bit of what we're trying to do today. I've had the privilege in my role to see the power of people coming in with different perspectives and different opinions when they're coming together for the sake of the community, which I think is a really special thing that we're able to do tonight. So I'm so glad that all of you are here. I'd like to thank Emmanuel Faith for being willing to open up their doors to the community so that we can have some really important conversations and hopefully some productive conversations. And joining us today to lead that conversation, I have the honor of introducing Lori Holt-Filer, who not only, go ahead. Not only is she currently the CEO of the Building Industry Association of San Diego County, she also spent time leading the Habitat for Humanity for this region, and as I'm sure many of you know, spent 12 years as this city's mayor. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome up Lori Holt-Filer.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And really glad to be here tonight. So glad to see so many here in the audience that are willing to come out, spend an evening just discussing what we have in the city. The opportunity, Consuelo Martinez is here, a council member. great to have a council a council member that can hear some of the conversation that we have, because the more you hear from the community, the better the decisions that you make. That's how I always believed. I care about this community, and I've become very passionate about housing. I ran for office and didn't know anything about housing. I just wanted to make decisions so people could lead better lives. And as much fun as it is to vote for libraries, street cleaning, and water rates, you found out that when you listened, and they have a family has a home that they can call their own, that's when you take care of yourself. So housing became very important to me. We need to have housing of all types. And I really believe that we're losing our sense of community. I work for the Building Industry Association. I'm about getting a better supply of housing. It needs to be available for us. And if we don't have it, we are losing our sense of community. People don't know what city they belong to. They're just chasing cheaper housing as they go along. And I also believe that as housing becomes more expensive, people that have this kind of income push the people out, the middle income people out, the middle income people push out the low income push out the very low income, and the next thing you know, we have a much worse housing crisis. So I am a believer in housing as a big part of the solution. Tonight, we are here to talk about homelessness. And I'll always talk about, I could talk about housing all day long, but tonight we're going to get right to this level of housing and homelessness and the situation that we have in the city of Escondido. And it really comes this evening because a couple of weeks ago, the county of San Diego, talking about how they wanted to address homelessness, had a site that was going to be a shelter here in Escondido, and there was a big pushback on that. And so the county took that shelter spot off the list, but it really makes that, so what does Escondido want to do? So we as a community can have that kind of a conversation. There is a council meeting tomorrow night, and there's a task force. Mayor Dane White and Councilmember Joe Garcia are on that task force, and they are making a recommendation. So at the end of this evening, one action you can take is to show up at the council meeting tomorrow night and share some of your thoughts and make some feedback. We want to hear it. Somebody will be taking notes, bringing all this information together, getting a better sense of where we feel like we should be as a city. Maybe we will have some conclusions, or maybe we will just have a good discussion. The first question is, in what ways have you been impacted by people experiencing homelessness? Tamara, would you like to start? If you don't raise your hand, I may just call on you. So I happen to know that Tamara serves as the executive director of the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, so we'll just let you have a little bit of start on this conversation.
Well, thank you. Is that on? That's on? I'm going to stand up, but I'm really short, so it doesn't make that much. I see Gary Worth back there. Okay, maybe that works. Thank you. Working to address homelessness is my single role. And so when you ask about how people experiencing homelessness impact me personally and the work that I do, I've done this work for the state of Utah. I did it in the city of Seattle for about a year, and I've been here in the San Diego region for 6 years. So it impacts my day-to-day, hour-by-hour work. I also live downtown San Diego, very close to the biggest center of where we have shelters, some of the larger unsheltered population. And for me, I think I am most impacted of people experiencing homelessness in the way that they've been dehumanized. I go out with outreach teams. I see people in shelter. I see people work through treatment programs. I see them thrive in housing. I've also seen us lose lives to the streets from environment, from exposure, a significant aging population out there. Our 55-year-older is the largest growing population. Many of them, our data shows over 50% experiencing homelessness for the very first time. The majority of them, it is a traumatic life event, and they cannot afford the housing. And 2/3 of them have some type of physical ailment. So I see homelessness as one of the greatest challenges that we have to address people's health needs and have housing that is adequate and affordable in abundance. There was a time in this nation we had that. And there's a space and a place to get back to it. So for me, homelessness is something I work on every day, but it also is something that I see every single day that we're ending someone's homelessness. We house more people in San Diego County than most other communities do, bar none. But we have big numbers too. And so you will see we have a large population that are living in their vehicles because that's the only affordable housing they have as well. This is working folks. A third of the folks in shelter come in with some job, some level of income, and they are desperate to find work and they are desperate to find housing. So for me, Lori, that's homelessness for me. I hope that's a helpful level set.
It's a good start for the conversation. Now, would anyone else like to add to that? Yes, ma'am. Logan, this is Logan. He is your runner with the microphone. All right, we'll see.
I have lived in Escondido a little over 30 years now, and I worked in social work with the county over 30 years. Higher, I need it. Is that better for you?
And we're streaming. I understand we're streaming this
streaming.
show.
Oh, yeah. I hate that. Okay, so one of the things that I think is important that us as a community of Escondido is that Escondido has been kind of ahead of this whole issue with as many organizations, starting with the one that's hosting this event today, when it comes to helping people and dealing with homelessness and others that don't have shelter, blah, 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 right? Okay. So to me, coming here, because I was one of those that was a little put off, and I don't know if anybody's here from the Lucky Duck Foundation. I think y'all do wonderful things if you are here, but there was a comment that was made when we or the mayor opposed the 2-acre site that was named without anybody's input or knowledge of it, okay? And I think that set a bad tone to begin with. And I think that's why we're all sitting here now, actually, which is a good thing, because that's what we needed to do before the commentary. And in doing that, I mentioned to one of the board members, and he's a great guy because he also does Feeding San Diego, which has been right up here at the church parking lot where they've come and give out food. I don't know if they're still doing it in Escondido regularly, but they were doing it. And just to let you know, I'm over the white wall of that parking lot, of that extra parking lot. So I know everything that goes on. But I don't attend this church because I'm Jewish, but I love this church and what it gives to this community, okay? So I think what's really important is that us as a community, and I appreciate everybody sharing what homelessness is, but we are based in North County. Does that mean that Escondido is going to pick up extra for other cities like San Marcos, Vista, Valley Center, or certainly we're not bringing up San Diego, the city of San Diego, because I don't think that would be, my opinion is that wouldn't be okay. They have their set of services and resources and their tax-paying money, and we have our set, okay? So I think, to me, that would be the most important thing, is that we recognize that in Escondido, we have done an excellent job between Habitat for Humanity, Interfaith Services, Compact, the faith-based religious organizations in this community has welcomed and gone out of their way to help those less fortunate. And we are also very blessed that we have a high percentage of a culture, the Hispanics, that house and will feed and take care of their family regardless how many people they put in one home. So all these things are very important to me in this discussion. And I'm just an upper crust, white Jewish old woman, but I have a big voice and I like to use it, okay?
We heard you. We heard you. Other comments about how you have experienced people experiencing homelessness? What is your firsthand experience? Yes, ma'am. Here, I'll let you use this one, because I have a soft voice.
I live on the west side of Escondido, near the Home Depot on 9th Avenue, and it's right by the Escondido Creek. And there's a large population of the homeless there. See them all the time, that sort of thing. And what I try to do is I hand out the interfaith cards to them when I'm walking around. When I hand out the cards, many of them say, oh yes, I'm aware of interfaith, and they tuck the card into their pocket and on they go. But one of the things I've never seen over in that area is any kind of outreach teams. And I don't know, I'm relatively new to Escondido, just a couple years, and I did work with the homeless in a little town in Colorado, Durango, and I think the population of homeless here would really benefit from more outreach. So that's mostly what I want to say.
Great, thanks. Thanks. Anyone else?
We're coming.
Okay. I know you'll get warmed up, and then everybody will want to talk, and then we'll have to cut people off. Like at the council meeting, you only get 1 minute, so, yeah, but it'll be okay.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for organizing this and showing up. My name is Pastor Christina de la Cruz. I'm the pastor at House of Prayer on the corner of Mission and Rose. And I would say in the last couple months, we've definitely had an uptick in folks coming through asking for assistance. And we've also, unfortunately, had an uptick in folks. Did I bump it? I got too emotional.
Here.
Unfortunately, we've also had an uptick in folks breaking into areas of the church to take up residency. And what that communicates to me is just the level of desperation to break into a church looking for shelter. And also, I have a deep concern for the security for the homeless community, to be able to take care of one another, to be safe around in Escondido. Yeah, I have a very deep concern for security, not just for property, it's property, right? But for the people in this community, homeless especially, who are in a very vulnerable position.
Are there any business people in the audience that own a business in Escondido? We're all retired, right? Not. So no, not at all. Some of us, we got that. Any other thoughts about how you experience? You just want to make Logan run all the way to the back.
I think so too. Let me make mic check. All right.
And while you're walking back there, I just give a headline on the next question is, what are the specific challenges our community faces regarding homelessness? So the first question is, how have you been impacted by people experiencing homelessness? This is a little slightly different. What are the specific challenges our community faces regarding homelessness? It's a kind of a bigger overview picture. So yes, ma'am.
So what I talk to homelessness, ask them, have they been to Interfaith? Have they asked for help? And I get that there is no help available to them. They say that they've been to Interfaith and they're young men and there's no resources for young men. And they, so what I feel is that there's just not enough resources to go around and to support this population, support this group, especially men. And I'm also very concerned about youth who are transitioning into a little bit older 20s, and I think it's just a real hard way to start a life. So
I always thought when I was on the council what a challenge it was, because we would always support homeless shelters for women and children, but even in our society today, men earn more money than women, and if you don't help men get off the street, then you're not supporting the entire family. And so we should never be excluding any one person, male, female, or whatever. If you're homeless, you need to have help. So interesting that you can hear that still from men, that it's harder for them to find help. And then it is true, there are a lot of, I hear that in San Diego, how many students are homeless, and that changes their life forever. It really does. We're not making the investment. So that was a good transition comment into what are the specific challenges our community faces regarding homelessness. So if you're the city council member and you're trying to solve this, what are the challenges that you have to solve? This is not an easy homelessness is not easy to solve. Tamara's been working on it forever. There are a lot of different kinds of solutions. What are the challenges that we face specifically in Escondido in trying to solve this? Yes, ma'am.
I would say one of our biggest challenges is that it's very common to hear contempt and a lack of empathy for people who are unsheltered. A lot of people feel like it's their own fault, and they're not aware of all the circumstances that can cause someone to end up without a place to live.
The BIA had their big gala this last Saturday, and we actually invited previously homeless people to come and talk to us, and they talked about that specific issue, that don't always label us as not being able to help ourselves, or it's our fault that we got into this situation, that there's a lot of other reasons. And so very different people need to hear that, especially from people who have experienced homelessness. What are the challenges we face as a city? Yes. Yep, he's right there.
You know, one of the things that I think we don't sometimes think about is how homelessness impacts the delivery of a lot of other services. I was a city councilman in Oregon in the late 80s when they first cut all the funding for mental health care and substance abuse, and all of a sudden homelessness became a big problem. It's continued to grow. But I have a book club we went to down in Mission Valley in the library, for the same library for about 10 years, and the library has become almost unusable, especially on rainy days, because homeless people have nowhere else to go. So the library has become a homeless shelter. And libraries were becoming more than just books, and their ability to fulfill that mission has been really impacted. The same with healthcare. I mean, I know Interfaith runs a great program for people that are homeless to get, where do they go after they leave hospitalization? But it becomes a real challenge for those folks trying to deliver health care to people that need health care. So it impacts everything across our society, you know, and we really need to think about that and as a problem that's, if we can solve it, and it is solvable. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Northern Europe recently, and it's not noticeably homeless people. If they're there, you can't see them, you know, and the potholes are filled and all that kind of stuff. So it's a solvable problem, and if you solve it, it fixes a lot of other things.
It is really annoying to go to another country and find that they don't have potholes.
Right. I saw one somebody I thought was homeless in Germany, but I think they were making up for it.
So yes, we can solve homelessness, and why aren't we? So what are the challenges that we are dealing with that make it so that we aren't solving the problem? Oh, here we go.
Can you hear it? Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So the question is, what are the specific challenges our community faces regarding homelessness? I will tell you that today, the challenge that I am facing, I also live on the west side of Escondido. The challenge that I am facing, it has to do with the fact that our city has a subcommittee on homelessness that includes the mayor and one council member, but it doesn't just include the mayor and one council member, it is the mayor and one council member. And so I am concerned that there is not a larger group made up of folks who have lived experience, made up of service providers, made up of neighbors. And so I see that today as I know that that's one of the other questions, but I see that as a big challenge today. And I also, the draft policy that came out, I see that as a big challenge. I would love to see some additional data and research around how, addressing homelessness punitively has a positive impact. So that's how I'm feeling today about the challenges that we're facing here.
So you would make a suggestion to the council that if you're a task force or you're this council subcommittee, that you broaden your input and include more community.
Right.
Okay. So
one other person would be cool. I mean, a couple more people.
No council members, though.
Two people a subcommittee does not make, in my opinion.
That's okay. Here's a question right here. We got a couple more hands
Who
up.
was the next? Who was the first one that raised their hand?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
In kind of keeping with that line of thinking, I think it's just really important that we have coordination, better coordination between all the people that are doing all of this good work. As a former deputy superintendent of the school district here in Escondido, the elementary district, that was something that we really tried to do. There's been several large grants where we tried to make a healthy community by bringing all of those resources together. And what better way for that to happen than what this woman just said, by having the community that actually has firsthand knowledge, but also just those people who have the servant heart that really want to make a difference in our own community and want to help these people. And so I think that's really important. And I know that there is some good work being done in terms of apps that are out there that can let each of these agencies know I have a single young male looking for a bed, and those kinds of coordinations, but we need to do that within our own community. And it really feels like things are compartmentalized and almost protected rather than open. And I think that I see that as a big challenge in our community.
Yeah, I mean, that is always a challenge, and the First Lady that spoke and talked about how Escondido is farther ahead. We have so many great organizations in this city that are all a piece of it, but is there a tally of what everyone does? So, and here's a question. There's a comment right there.
Who's the next one?
Right here.
Well, I think the big challenge for our community and all of San Diego, actually, is it's too expensive. We have a handyman that a friend now, we've known for 25 years. He works 7 days a week, and he's just barely making it. And for some reason, he lost someplace, not because of his own problems, and then he's living in a bedroom. But this is ridiculous because he's a hardworking man. But if you have a good income, you still have trouble. So the big challenge is there, I don't know whether there's any way we can keep the rent from keep on going up without the salaries going up. You know, people have to have skills, and a lot of people don't have skills, so they work at very low-paying jobs. So they have a low-paying job and high rent, high food, high gas, high electricity. I think that's our biggest challenge.
Your handyman is at risk of becoming homeless.
He won't as long as we're around, but I mean, I would never let him go homeless. That's another question I have, and I don't understand it. Where's the friends and the family? I don't understand that. Where are they?
And that's a very good question. And there may be somebody in here, in this room, that have some experience, and here's somebody that might want to answer that question. Before that, so just on the housing issue, San Diego County is the least affordable housing market in the country, and we share that with San Francisco and Boston. We're always 1, 2, or 3, and we just trade those roles out. A single-family home in Riverside County costs $570,000. In San Diego, it costs $980,000. And so when you talk about the expensiveness of housing and why we have such a challenge. Yeah.
Hi. So I have a niece who is homeless, and she's 30 years old, and I had a hand in raising her. I had her on the summer, and she lives by the person that lives by Home Depot. She's behind the vacant Big Lots, and her favorite place to be is the dumpster. So I go there. I know all the security guards. I feed her. I offer all the services that you have heard about here, that you know about. She wants to be where she is, and she won't go to a shelter because they don't give you heroin or fentanyl there. So she has chosen to stay there. And I can spend the time with her at welfare. We went there a couple days ago. I scraped her off the ground, kind of got her presentable, and we went there, and she asked for GR, general relief, and she was told that those services have been canceled, that she cannot get general relief. And they said, are you sure you need it? Something like that, because we have other places to go, interfaith and all that. And she literally looks like I scraped her off the street. And since I was standing there, I was like, are you seriously asking her if she needs general relief? She has no housing. She's in a dumpster. I just picked her up from there, and they said we do not have that service anymore. So I am trying my best, and I have a large family. She doesn't want to leave, and I'm the only one who can communicate with her, or the only one to sit in a dumpster willing to get her and wait for her to get out of whatever mess she's in into my car to get her somewhere else. On top of that, where I live, that's where she lives, but I live off of Seven Oaks and Rock Springs, and I have my other end of my homeless issue is that they're living off that freeway and they cut into the gate, but all that whole housing there, that's where they rob. That's me. So I'm helping another homeless person on this side while I'm getting robbed on this side. And you can't have a bike on our street, and it's a cul-de-sac area, so we know who comes in, but there's been people sitting on our transformer out in the front, and I'm a house behind a house, so I'll get phone calls from everybody in front that there's somebody out there. I walk a dog, there's a guy sitting there, I'm like, go. But I have all different levels. I have to listen to opera at 7-Eleven, because that's how they keep them away. The building across the street, it's true, on Rock Springs and Mission, they're playing opera really loud. The building across the street from them caught on fire from the homeless people. That's another issue. They're catching places on fire. They're catching the fields on fire. Like, we have to help them. I'm doing my best on one end, and I know the problem. I get the problem. I understand it. She's back there with more than just her, and I see it. And the security guards see it, and the police see it. She's lost her stuff. I can't give her anything. She only keeps it for one day, so that's...
There's 1,000 different stories, isn't there?
There is. So I don't know what the
life
answer
stories.
is, but I thought that I read that Dane White and Joe Garcia together stopped housing the funding of some sort, and I don't know the names of all the funding grants or whatever, but then they redirected it to child trafficking in Escondido.
And I think Greg could answer that question more
Which
accurately.
I have heard nothing about before.
Thank you, Lori. My name is Greg Angel with Interfaith Community Services. So I'll answer that and also answer the question, what are the specific challenges? Far too often I hear a fear, an allegation that people who are unsheltered in Escondido are not from Escondido. They're from Poway, they're from downtown San Diego, or wherever is not here, not there, which is other. It was mentioned that there should be more outreach to individuals on the streets. Interfaith operates outreach teams, and we have firsthand data from those outreach teams. This last year in 2023, 79% of people identified Escondido as their last place of residence who are unsheltered. 79.5% said they're from Escondido. So these numbers are the same because that's the figure that we see in this community, and Interfaith does this in other communities, and it's about the same in the other communities too. So if we need to stop saying it's other people's problems, and if we just stop doing things, people would stop coming and it would go away. So that's a problem. Until we own it and realize that these are our neighbors we're talking about, our children and our brothers and our sisters and our teachers and our students, we're not going to be able to address it. And then we need places for people to go. Unfortunately, Interfaith operated for many years the only general homeless shelter in this community. It used to be an overnight drop-in shelter, and then COVID happened, and that didn't make any sense, and so we expanded it to be a really robust 24/7 shelter that cared for people with, physical conditions that make me look pretty good right now. And what happened is that we ended up with a shelter that cost about $1 million a year to run, and we had a little over $100,000 a year in funding, with a little less than half of that coming directly from the city of Escondido. So the city did make a decision, your question, to no longer fund that shelter, and that was unfortunate, but that frankly was not the problem. The problem is that much larger we as a community, we're not demanding, and I put this on me, I put this on all of us who vote, all of us who demand what we should do in this community, we weren't demanding that we have a place for people to go. And as a result, that shelter wasn't adequately funded, and it was hurting Interfaith's ability to help more than 20,000 people through all of our programs, through addiction treatment programs, mental health programs, job training programs, through all of those programs. It was hurting our ability to do that. And so we actually had to reduce the size of that program and co-locate it with the Turk Center, where we have people coming out of hospitals. And it's working very well there because we have nurses and other staff who can support, but there aren't beds available. So what are the challenges? Right now, there's no room, there's no shelter tonight. So somebody wants to get into the treatment programs that we operate, they're full. Somebody wants to get into our recuperative care center, it's full. Somebody's in those programs. Our family shelter just opened this last year, 12 families tonight, full. Escondido police chief on our ass saying, I have a family of 5, you can't get them in. I know, chief, it's full. We don't have a place for that family. And I didn't say that.
They say they're not from Escondido?
This family's from Escondido, right? And I don't say that in any way because to denigrate the chief. We work closely with him, but he's frustrated. We're frustrated. We're all frustrated. We want to have a place for people to go. And so my hope tonight is that we can come together and say, okay, these are our neighbors. These are our people. We're frustrated. We're upset. They're even more upset. We need places for people to go.
Could we have actual numbers? Because everybody talks in percentages, but that doesn't help us understand what that translates to.
How many homeless are in Escondido?
Yeah, not you guys do tons of treatment things, but the ones that you would just say are permanently now without any kind of shelter. How many are we looking at in numbers?
Yeah, so the question would be, I think the number is 600 in Escondido. And then how many beds are there in Escondido?
Well, right now, there are about 15 general shelter beds in Escondido. Our homeless outreach teams worked with 125 unique individuals last year. When we had a smaller team the year before, with just a couple more people, we worked with more than 600 individuals. The point-in-time count that the regional task force administers, that a lot of you helped out with this last year, will be released later this spring, probably found about 500 unsheltered individuals. So that's here in Escondido. And those are just people found on one night. It far outpaces the amount of available shelter and beds.
And that point-in-time count counts the people that you can see. And really a big part of our homeless crisis is people that you don't see, that still have 2 jobs in their cars hiding somewhere else that you will never find, right? So, all right, any other yes?
I'm a part of her church, and there's other members here. We're trying very hard to become active, but I think it's been brought up here in many different ways. We need more information. We need specific information. Because not my experience working in Lemon Grove, driving all over the county, is that there are many different kinds of homeless people, and their needs are different. And not every one of us or our groups can meet the needs of all the people. So where can we plug in? And to do that, we need more specific information. We need demographics. We need statistics. We need to know what is needed. And it might not, at one time, our church was one of the first to be part of the Interfaith, and we homed the homeless overnight, the drop-ins or whatever you want to call it.
Rotating shelter.
What?
Rotating
shelter. Yeah. But,
Yes,
yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying we need specific information because our community can't meet the needs of every type of homeless person. But we can help in certain areas. And to be efficient and to be productive, we need that information. And somebody here said we need to codify it. We need to be able to have a place to go to get that information, and that's not your responsibility. That needs to be coming through the city.
So that may be the suggestion that we heard earlier of the city council committee broadening their outreach to hear from a variety of folks
we need some
that,
facts.
that would be able to describe the different types of homelessness and the solutions that might be able to target one group over another. That might be a good conversation that we could, as a consensus, suggest we take to the city council tomorrow.
Two questions. Is there anybody here from Salvation Army? Because we had misinformation that the Salvation Army does shelter, but then I was told, no, they don't shelter. So if there's actually shelter beds, so evidently not. But and do you know, Greg, what's your opinion about tiny homes? Because that was something that I personally was interested in. If like some of us in the faith community could do that.
And the county has pods that are for one people or two available, they say, if somebody wants to establish where they go and set up this.
That was part of the solution that the county was going to bring up here, right?
The county offer was tiny home-like things to operate as shelters. Shelters are not a solution. Shelters are a short-term step to hopefully a solution. Faith communities who would be interested in building housing on their property is absolutely a part of the solution. I know of a couple faith communities that are significantly moving that along, right? Here in Escondido and in other parts of the community, whether that's tiny homes or other homes, we need more homes.
We need permanent. We need permanent.
Yes.
I will still say it's a housing issue. Yes, at the end of the day. There's a lot of demographics that are out there, but there's a lot of different solutions. So.
Well, I mean, clearly the answer to homelessness is homes. These more front doors for people to walk through and actually live in, and not just be on a cot overnight, where they don't necessarily always feel, safe or that they're moving forward in changing their life. But in cities, you asked about cities or the community, and I feel like I kind of talk loud. Cities have no motivation whatsoever to build small affordable homes. Cities are funded by property taxes and sales tax. So they're motivated to build McMansions on a postage stamp instead of a bunch of, low-cost homes on that postage stamp. So the whole system of how cities are funded, and post-COVID, cities are starving for money. So, because they lost all the sales revenue.
Yes.
And big event revenue. So, we're stuck in this systemic problem of cities don't want affordable housing. And then when they try to get it through tax credits, they're gigantic, and then neighbors don't want it. So we have to make it more attractive to be attractive and smaller.
Well, and you talk about where the money flows kind of makes what decisions we end up with. If you get tax credits and you get bigger 100 units or whatever, and people, I've never experienced such difficult council meetings as when I don't want those people living next to me. And it's like, but they're your teachers, they're your preschool teachers, they're the people that serve, they're the restaurant waitress waiter or whoever, but the handyman and so forth. So there's a lot of that where the money flows. In Escondido, the property tax that you pay, Escondido only gets 12% of that. It's just a little piece of that. So, but they get a lot more sales tax.
Yeah, so the Palomar Hospital, the old one, all I know is that it looks huge with the housing. Could somebody tell us how much of that's going to be affordable apartments, units over there that's going in the old hospital?
Yeah, that I remember that one had zero requirements. Zero, yeah. But
That's unacceptable, period. So if we're really going to talk about this and be reasonable, it's called, I guess, developers and capitalism, and let's just be honest here. We've got to recognize that if we're going to have this kind of roadblock, like what I'm just hearing, that is that rental or is that condos you buy? What exactly is that housing all about over there?
That'll be rental housing.
And no affordable rental units were put in place.
But you also realize that every time you impose an affordable unit on that, it only increases the all the rest of the units so nobody can afford it. So, but that's a different discussion.
That's called profit margin.
No,
Come on, Lori, be
yeah.
fair.
That's a different kind of conversation we'll have on a different day. So one of the questions that we have are, what are the challenges that that people face overcoming homelessness? And I'm not sure we're qualified to answer that question, but we might have some observations, especially when we think the first thing that we've observed is if there isn't a place to go, what do you do? How do you actually overcome homelessness? Way in the back.
I'm coming, and then I'll come to you next.
I know there are many solutions. I think, this problem, as you stated before, is complicated. But certainly in Escondido, what would help, and in every city, is to have a day center. So people are not, the only place they have to go is the library or some business or whatever. And at that day center, it should be staffed. So there's people there who can help with whatever, whatever the issues might be. I know they're not all going to go there, but some people would probably get that first-time help to find something that's a little bit more, at least temporary, and then more secure.
Do we have a day center in Escondido?
We do not have a day center in Escondido.
Yes.
They do have one in down south.
Of Escondido?
No.
Nah.
Just to show that it helps.
It does help. If you have, at least if it's one place. I know that Greg would talk about the outreach team, and every city that you talk to, they have an outreach team, but the first time you talk to somebody is not the time that they may come in for help. The outreach has to go on and on and on and on until one day they're ready for help. Somebody's ready. Any other ideas on what challenges people face? Brian? In the middle.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, sir. We'll get
Where's
back
Ryan?
to you. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm Ryan. Would financial assistance to help people, it sounds like most of these people that are homeless are not drug addicts. That's a small percentage. So we're talking about people down on their luck, seniors who have been out for health reasons or their apartments or whatever. Would a first and last month and financial assistance get them back into a home?
Maybe. So, sorry, come back up this way.
My name's Mark Bauer, and my wife and I experienced personally a family that was homeless up in Fullerton, where we lived up in that area. And the lady was a friend of our minister from out of state, and she showed up one day at her church unannounced with her son, and they had been living on the street. And we found, first of all, there's a lot of different reasons for homelessness. This particular individual, she was a wonderful woman. She loved her family. She loved her kids. She had 3 boys and divorced, and she ended up having a lot of mental problems, schizophrenia. And we were able to find out this was her problem. Someone gave us information on how to help her, number one, in her case. And she started taking her medication, and she really wanted to take care of her child, but she couldn't really take care of herself. So we had an arrangement where we took care of her child between the minister and my wife and I. We didn't adopt him, but we all but adopted him when he was 12 years old. And she was in a program which called City Lights, which we got her off the street. We got her into a unit there, and she wanted. She was a hard worker. She continued to work, but one of the requirements was that she had to get a job, and that she had to keep her room clean, and she was there for a set amount of time. It was just a window for her to get on her feet. But also, she could not do drugs, and that they would have inspections. She had a requirement to do her job, and she did do her job. So that was 15, 16 years ago. And, you know, we were very blessed that we found the most wonderful young man that was living on the street. You know, today he's in India. He's a chemist. A brilliant man, wonderful.
One of those jobs you don't know what they do because it's way beyond us, right?
He's just way beyond. And the amazing thing is that he's intelligent, smart, the most wonderful man I've ever met. He's never complained, you know. And my wife and I, we pretty much took care of him. We pretty much adopted him. But anyway, it's a success story, but it's not typical, I don't think. But there was a road there, and it's, you know, there's all these different problems, but you just have to somebody has to get intimate at times with them. You know, when drugs are involved, and she got into drugs, you know, she almost lost her life. We had to get the police involved. You know, we had to go find her on the street, rescue her. Somebody was trying to kill her. And, you know, all these bad things happen, but, you know, it just, you know, outreach. You know, we don't, sometimes we wait for an organization to do something when each of us individually can make a difference. When we see something, we need to speak up. You know, over at Home Depot, that's one of my most favorite places. Is my happy place. My wife tells me to go there to get happy. and they have some fantastic workers there. And I've watched the homeless people over the years, and they've just gotten extreme of late. And I had to speak up, you know, and there's people there that I help, you know, but also I saw mattresses, I saw drugs, I saw these things that I didn't want to see there as a person to go shop there. And so I went to the manager and I had a talk with him. I said, look, there's a problem. Who owns this lot? He said, well, we do. I said, you know, there's beds out here now. You know, there's graffiti everywhere, you know, happening there. I go, you need to do something. He said, well, the police won't do anything. And I said, well, you know, it's going to happen. If people don't make changes here, it's going to end up like San Francisco. People will leave. You know, you will leave. You know, we can't have that. You know, so I've gone out there and talked to the homeless, and I try to help them. You know, let them know that people care for them. You know, do you have a mother or father? Do you have family? You know, there's a lot of different problems. You know, there's not one size that fits all. But, you know, treat them with respect. You know, I told them that God loves them, you know, and it just, you know, look to the light. You know, there are answers there. But, you know, the manager did something about it because the next day, you know, the police were going around. People were moved out, you know, but, you know, people need help. They don't need to just be shoved off in a corner.
And where did they go?
I don't know. Well, she said she was going to go to the beach, you know, but this person I was talking to. But anyway, it just, I don't know, you just have to everybody has to get involved in some way. You can make a difference in one person's life. And if you can do that, that's a great thing.
So that one person go to Oceanside, and then Oceanside will be bitter because they're housing an Escondido resident.
Well, I don't know. So
how that works. In some ways, every city needs to have shelter so that we don't have to say we're taking it all. So, whose hand? Oh.
Real quick. I wanted to address the last question about how effective first and last month's rent is.
Okay.
So real quick.
I was wondering if Tamara could answer that.
So I'll answer it with an amazing study that was done by Serving Seniors. That they interviewed a number of seniors experiencing homelessness, and they asked, how much would you need financially to avoid your homeless experience? And they said $300 to $400. Like, people are living so tight on the margins that many times it's that, or it may be 6 months. That is far cheaper than a lot of the other challenges that we have. But it can be a small amount of financial assistance, absolutely.
And the challenge with that is they're on a fixed income, And so if their rent goes up and they're short $300 or $400, they're short $300 or $400 for the rest of their life. But from a societal impact, it'd be much better off for us to provide the $300 to $400 than have them end up on the street. So that's and where do those funds come from? Right. That's yes. So you spoke before, Zinni. Glad to have you speak again. We have the mic coming.
Kind of based on what that gentleman said over there, I think that if we make a law that family can work with them, there is a conservative law, but she has to agree to it, and she does agree to it when she thinks she's getting money and it'll go into her pocket. Like it can't be that wishy-washy and based on her at all. She clearly is. We know she has mental health issues, but she cannot make one decision for herself. So she needs a family member or a good friend or somebody from the county or whoever it is to be able to access a conservative have conservatorship over her easily. Like if she goes 6 more months, she'll be dead. That she's that bad off. But if I could go get services without waiting for her to be coherent and get her into housing, get her into mental health first. I can do all that without her having to come with me to the office and sign papers. So if the law was just more for the conservator, then that would be...
Right. And that the care court that's coming in is fairly new still. And I think San Diego is one of the first counties to be able to implement it. And I don't know if Tamara could give us the details on how that works. Right? You said yes. You shook your head yes.
I was going to say it is the first. It's the first county in San Diego that is doing it. CARES Court is not just for people experiencing homelessness. I think that's also really important. It's going to serve a very small population. It is different from the conservatorship conversation. It is trying to work with folks through the court system, and that need that extra level of support and engagement, but it's done through the court system. So it also adds sort of that judicial side of it that can make their journey even harder. So CARES Court is still, I'll just say, somewhat out for proof that it's going to make the difference that people are looking for, but also say it's going to be a very, very small population that will be identified as eligible for CARES Court. It is, it's not
going to be the panacea. It's not the panacea. As we said, we need 1,000 different solutions, so this could be one small one. And it is, and you're right, it's not just for homelessness, but I hear about families that are desperate to get their family member into some protection because they're not able to take care of themselves, and they need somebody to do that for them.
And this is one pathway.
This is one pathway.
And the hope is that people aren't experiencing homelessness. You might be able to get help for a family member and others. It's a very high diagnosed need that will get you there.
Government comes out with a solution, we think it's the solution. Oh. Is my mic dying? No. Okay, good. So how do we, what are the current proposals in Escondido to address homelessness? Now, we've started that conversation a little bit, and it's going to be in front of the public tomorrow, and so you can read about it and then go and make your comments tomorrow. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, I'm hoping with all these smart people in the room and you guys as service providers, I'm hoping that you have some plans and ideas, and you have a call to action for us. We want to do something, and we're not sure where our resources can best be put. So don't let us all go without your call to action, please. Okay, so that was
I see that we have a lot of organizations here, and maybe we should identify them, and so we can call on them every once in a while, too. But Trudy from the San Diego Foundation, you've got to raise your hand so we can see you. I said Consuelo Martinez is here. Neighborhood Healthcare? Who's here from Neighborhood Healthcare?
All right. In Ashley's Hope, Operation Hope, the Regional Task Force on Homelessness. Tamara, we're glad to have you here. NAMI, NAMI, MAC, Child Development, Emmanuel Faith, Palomar Family Counseling Service, and McAllister's North Inland Regional Recovery Center. So there's a lot of resources out here in our community. How do we answer the entire question, right? So next question is, how do we continue the conversation and work together? Yes.
I wasn't ready for that question.
Oh, good. Go back to the question that you want to answer. We can continue the discussion.
One thing about what challenges face the homeless people face is if they are trying to get into a place, besides first and last month rent, there's application fees, and I learned about that through some people, that every place they apply to, it's $100 or something like that, and for each adult in the family. So it's like so expensive to find a new place when you're getting priced out of the one that you're in. And Oceanside I was part of a group that was going to try to push something that would get reimbursement for people, or try to coordinate those applications so they didn't have to do them over and over, that there'd be a place where they were shared online. That didn't happen, and they just said they'd put some money aside for people to apply for after they put the money out to get some back to them. But it was something I never thought of, those application fees.
The application fees do add up. And there are some services that will go across different kinds of units, but that's only if they will subscribe to that. And so then you could end up paying a lot. You end up paying a lot more than you should.
And then my other question was, how might Prop 1, if it passes, help this issue in our community?
Prop 1, is there an expert on Prop 1 in the House? Okay, Greg, do you know?
So the question was about Prop 1, which is to redirect an existing tax dollar, the tax that right now funds mental health services. It's going to redirect, if it passes, some of those funds to build places for people to go. And Interfaith Community Services is in favor of Prop 1 because, well, you've heard me say it and you've heard others say it today. There are not places for people to go right now, and this is a way to create more of those places. It's not a panacea. None of these things are. It's a much more complex issue than one single resource will address. I appreciate the desire to see a call to action. We all came here to share, to listen, to learn, but then to do something, right? Well, on that trajectory of creating places for people to go, Interfaith is working to identify and implement a new resource to provide more access to drug and alcohol treatment and mental health services for individuals who are homeless here in Escondido. In order for that to happen, we need the support of community. We need the support of our city leadership. So that's an action to say we need places for people to go who are struggling with these issues. And that can happen by voicing that opinion at City Council. Tomorrow is a fantastic opportunity. There's a policy that will be considered then tomorrow that talks a lot about need for sobriety and treatment. That's great. Talk is fantastic, but action is what we need, right? So I would encourage you all to voice support and demand places for people to go. Prop 1 is one way to potentially do that. Some people may view it otherwise, but that's our perspective on it. And then I'm just going to make it more complicated because this is a really complicated issue, and this is about listening and learning. When you look at demographics, individuals who are homeless in San Diego County, 28% identify as Black or African American. 28% of our unsheltered in San Diego County, that includes here in Escondido, are Black or African American. Our entire population of housed and unhoused who identify as Black or African American are 5%. 5%. But when we look at, that's the entire population, 5%. But when we look at our unsheltered, we see this huge disproportionate representation. Why is that? That's the result of inequality. It's the result of systems. That's the result of racism of lots of kinds. So when we look at policies that criminalize the people experiencing that situation, let's think a little bit more. Let's think a little bit more.
So a lot of thinking required in this whole challenge. We can all come and expect something to be fixed tomorrow, but it's not going to be. And as somebody said earlier, the ability to provide services in a city are impacted by the homeless that we have and what happens there, and how do people end up being homeless. There's a lot of different paths, and we may be responsible for some of those paths. So, yes.
Is there any way that the landlords can be given a tax break so that they eliminate first and last month's rent? Do you have something like that where, the landlords of Escondido, if they could be given some kind of tax break so that they would not charge not just the $2,000 a month, but also first and last month's rent?
I think there's a bill that's being discussed of reducing how much the first and last month's rent can be. And there's pros and cons to that as well. I mean, if your life savings is in a rental and somebody ruins it, but they didn't pay any last month's rent, then what do you do? So is there a guarantee or a government guarantee that could back that up or something like that? But it's a challenge to be able to get into housing if you don't have the first and last month's rent.
Well, we had houses at one time, and we checked more than money. We checked on how they kept their place, and frequently we would either eliminate the first or last month's rent, or we would just stretch it out over time.
Yeah, spread it out so that they could pay it, right?
But I guess there would have to be some kind of assurance, and they would have to not just take anybody, so that they don't care about what color they are, but can they not wreck a place? I think the landlords would be concerned about that.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Over here on the other side of the room. Sit right behind you, somebody speaking.
Hi, my voice is not that loud, so I was waiting for the mic. My name is Megan. I'm here from Supervisor Jim Desmond's office at the county, and so I just want to introduce myself and thank you all for putting this on tonight. And it's so encouraging to see so many people here from the community who are passionate about this issue. And a couple things. One is I just want to offer myself as a resource. My information is on the supervisor's website. One of the policy areas I handle is homelessness, and so I'm really always open to hearing about different suggestions and what you're seeing in your community and your businesses and your families and the organizations they are part of and the faith communities. The other thing is I'm not up to date on what's happening at the council meeting tomorrow in Escondido, but I did want to clarify for the item that was before the County Board of Supervisors that included the Escondido property, they did remove that one address. And the reason was, and I think it was mentioned, was because the supervisor who brought that item forward did not speak with anybody from the community, including the council members, the mayor, or community members. So my boss, Supervisor Desmond, asked to have that specific address removed, but there was an amendment made that included looking at all possible options in the city of Escondido for shelter while working with the city of Escondido. So that is still on the table. That is still moving forward at the county. Tiny homes were also mentioned, and we do have that program. If there are willing communities or places of faith, there are tiny homes available. So again, just want to be a resource for you all. My name is Megan House on the website. You can find my email, and happy to chat with any of you over email, on the phone, to hear what you're seeing. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Megan. So right behind you. Oh.
This maybe goes to interfaith. I know some people that volunteer, and I was willing and wanting to bring a family to my house because now I'm living more out of the house. And I don't want the rent money. You know, what I wanted to do was find a family that had support services that I would then be able to be housed in my house. But when I asked, it did not seem like y'all had a program that wanted to or could do a foster adopt family and house them with knowing that foster adopt family would get hooked with support services through, and I know y'all do so much already, so it's just another thing on your plate. But I just think that it goes along with what the pastor was saying about bringing in that. I mean, there are some of us that I think would be willing to turn over houses that sit empty, or we have too big of houses that most of the house sits empty, but we're a little bit nervous without a support system. And I think if there was a support system, especially in this very faith-based Escondido community, maybe more people could get on board. At least it could help in the families. Now, also you talked about men. That is a big issue because I did social services all my life, okay? There used to be a time, remember, when there was room and board and there was a really strong woman that was in charge of that big house, and she rented out rooms, and boy, she made sure everybody, you know. I think, could we take away the Airbnb model and bring back a model similar to that again? I think there's something to be said for that.
I can't go to the Airbnb, but Interfaith would be happy to work with anyone who has housing available that you want to make available for rent. We've done it with faith communities before. Mary Farrow is here, Mitchell, who introduced Lori, have worked with faith communities in that way. We'd be happy to work with anyone in that regard. And then we are also launching a new campaign to specifically connect interested volunteers and donors to families who we're helping. So we'd be happy to work with you on that as well.
So when we talk about a call to action, one of the things is, you know, is Escondido willing to host a shelter, and where should it be? And do we need to let the council know that we as a community believe we should have more beds available for homeless people to get them off the street? So that is that the call to action for this evening. So. Tomorrow night, 5 p.m., 5 p.m. There was a speaker in the back, yes.
Yeah, I had a response to that call to action because the council meeting is tomorrow. So we don't have to plan ahead. We've got tomorrow. And I think that rather than this whole group come up with a solution, our call to action is to go there and say that we care about our homeless neighbors and we want a response. Because if you've read the proposal that the city council has, it's been mentioned here, they didn't talk to us, right? They didn't ask what the community thinks. It was a very small group that they talked to, so we really haven't been consulted on what's going on in our own community, what we might want to see, what we're interested in. So we don't have to have answers. We simply have to say we are there with compassion and we want to have a response. And that's the other thing, is that their response is one really of punitive measures. They're seeing the issue not as an issue of housing, but an issue of crime. And as we said, it's a complicated issue. Certainly there is crime, but housing is what we need to talk about. So if we can just go to the council and say, we know many, many stories and you didn't listen to them. We have many, many issues and we care and we want to be involved. That could begin the conversation. So it's tomorrow. You all know where City Hall is? Yeah? What time is the meeting? 5 o'clock, okay, and you got 3 minutes to talk, unless there's too many of us, and then they'll cut it to a minute and a half. So plan 2 speeches, a really tiny one, and you can go a little longer, okay? Okay, as long as I have the microphone, one other call to action. I know, I just
She's a minister.
The Escondido clergy, or the Escondido faith leaders, I am one of the Escondido faith leaders, we have been talking about this issue for a long time, and we invite you to be part of a conversation. If you would like to learn more not just opinions, not just interactions that we have on the street, but learning some significant facts and the systems that have brought us to where we are. We invite you to read a book. It's called Poverty by America. The author is Matthew Desmond. And we are scheduling 2 conversations about that book. The information about that as you leave, we have little flyers, and we also have a sign-up. So if you're interested, just give us your email. It'll be on Zoom, and we'll be getting the links, so just give us that info. All right? So 2 calls to action. You got to do something. Thanks.
Thank you, Meg. And there was somebody else back there that wanted to speak right next to Meg, I think. Is that right? No? Okay. There's a speaker right here in the front. Raise your hand if you wanted to speak. Yeah.
Hi. When I think of the call to action, and I already had this planned in my head before this meeting, just because of my background with interfaith and things like that. But what my call out to action tomorrow is where's the collaboration? There's so many seats at the table that have been left not heard now as we're moving forward, the city council and the mayor and things like that. And that lack of collaboration is what's hurting us now. When seats at the table that can be there to provide solutions, there are solutions in San Diego County and throughout the North County corridor that can help bring more shelter beds, have different treatment options, right? Housing First is an option, there's drug treatment options, but there's seats that need to be at the table. And to say this is the solution, it's not going to work. And I think for me, that's my call to action is let's start collaborating with the people that know what they're doing, the organizations that know what they're doing. Let's let them talk and help us move forward.
Okay. Excellent. Any other comments? All right, I have lots of information for you. How can you help? Anybody? How many of you are familiar with Love Escondido? Yay. How many? Was it? There were like 1,800 people showed up at Grape Day Park for the Love Escondido Day, which is awesome. The community showed up to volunteer for Escondido. You could be part of the community. You could be part of the Escondido Chamber of Commerce. Use your voice. Consuelo wants to see you tomorrow night. So does the rest of the council. If they really serve the community, they always want to see the community and hear from the community. I know that for a fact after 18 years. So go to the council meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And the police department has opportunities for ride-alongs. And that is a great experience just to see. I know, but is it working now again? Okay. So you can go to the police department and do a ride-along. That is a great experience to really see your city in a different perspective. And then go to the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, RTFHSD, and write Tamara a letter. .org. And so that you know the issues. You got to thank everyone for coming tonight. I think we had a good discussion, lots of input, lots of different perspectives, lots of realization that this is not an easy problem, easy challenge to solve. There's a lot of different paths, and it's going to take very many roads to get there. So at the end of the day, it's about a home, though. Thank you very much. Oh,
Real quick. Okay. Well, one last thing also, if you are wanting to look into data and really know how many people are experiencing homelessness, RTFH is a great website. If you go to their site, every single month they do a breakdown, even for the whole year, and they also put out their point in time count that will be coming out very soon. So please check that out. Undetermined. RTFH.org. If we're going to pass out some papers that has the website on there for you to check it out. As well as some interfaith care cards as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Huh.